And it begins, Va'ela HaMishpatim. And these are the Mishpatim. Mishpatim are 7th year, he should go out free. What is it? The slave should be free. They don't have slaves. And certainly the last thing you think these people are going to have are slaves. They were just slaves for 200 years. They're going to have slaves? What are you telling them this now? Right? Let's say that the Jewish people were crass, unsophisticated, uncaring people, and they would go and abuse people right away as soon as they come out. But where are they going to get a slave? They just came out of Egypt. So there's a number of things we learn from this. First thing we learn is that very often people who have undergone some form of punishment or torture.
This should end around 9:20. Well,
yeah. That it's appropriate
so you'll be after that. You can use this machine however you want.
9:20 or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one after the
I'm trying to finish it.
And then go live in the forest with the partisans and fight against the Germans. So he was like 7 years old when it started, and he was around 13, 14 years old when it finished. And so now he comes to America, and he starts a family, and he builds a business. Now he has a son, right, who's getting, like ready to go to university. So where does he send his son? He tells his son, I want to send you to university where there's no Jews. He says, why? He's a religious kid, and the family are religious Jews. He says, well, because when I was a kid, you know why I am the way I am? Because of what I went through. I had to live among the non-Jews. I had to live with people who didn't understand me. They didn't believe in me. I had to live by people who, if they knew who I was, they would kill me. It was the Holocaust, right? It was during the Nazis. He said, so I became very strong, and that's how I was able to survive and become who I am. You have to do the same thing. So I'm sending you out to the middle of nowhere. So you should go and survive and do the same. This idea, even though it might be well-meaning, is wrong, right? You don't do that. You want to give your children a life better than your life, right? But when he went through this, he became coarse to the pain of it. You see it with people who quit smoking, people who lose a lot of weight, that they will very often be very critical about people who still do it. Even though you can have a guy who quit smoking 20 times in his life, right? The 21st time he finally does it, or he's done it for 2 months, and he sees a guy who's smoking, he starts up with him. Well, you smoking, well, you can't quit. I quit, you can't quit. Right? They become very, very harsh when it comes to those areas, and therefore the Jews who were slaves for 200 years might also be harsh to the idea of having a slave. They may say, I'll have a slave, and I'll treat him the same way I was treated. And God comes to them and says, no. I want to, and this is the second thing, God is saying, I want to seize the moment. This moment that the Jews come out of slavery, they'll feel the pain of the whip on their back. It wasn't that long ago. They feel the pain of having to do a life of menial labor for nothing, right? People are continually, they're continually reminded of this. So here the Jewish people who were like that and now are free, they can feel the weight off their shoulders. Right? They can actually feel it. And therefore, they're saying, let's seize this moment. God is saying, grab that emotion that the Jews have, that they're leaving slavery, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to tell them, this is how you treat a slave. When you have a slave, you treat him like this. He works for you for 6 years. You have one pillow, the slave gets it. You only have one bed, the slave gets the bed. That's how it's going to be, right? Why? Because they still feel the pain themselves. So here you see that the two messages that come out are both very important messages. One has to do with the timing, because it's right after they came out, and the second has to do with the fact that they themselves were abused, and they would become abusers themselves. And therefore the Torah tells them right away, don't do that. Now, it's a very odd story. It says here that a person has this servant, and it says, right, if you buy a Jewish servant, they'll work for you for 6 years, and the 7th he goes free for no charge. Basically, how does a Jewish servant work? It's not the same as a slave. Most slaves in ancient history were slaves just because of how they were born. They were born as slaves, they remained as slaves, they died as slaves. When the Jews had a slave, it was actually a very advanced concept, because most societies at that time, if you got into debt, they would put you in debtor's prison. And you couldn't get out of debtor's prison until your debt was paid, which of course you could never pay because you're in prison. So you'd have to get somebody else to pay your debt for you. But if you had nobody, you were in prison the rest of your life because you owed money to someone. So the Jews understood, like God understood, the Torah understood, that people get into trouble. Right? Things happen. And you know, a child gets sick. Somebody is they have to do something, and they have to borrow money, and they don't know how they're going to pay it back. And then they end up not being able to pay it back, but they have to. So what God sets up in the Torah, this idea of a man, a free person, sells himself as a slave for these 6 years, and the payment is that his debt is paid. Whatever his debt is, it's paid. So he walks in with a debt, he walks out with no debt. And while he's there, he's supported, he's taken care of, he's fed, that he has a family, his family is taken care of. You know, like I said before, if you have one pillow, the slave gets it. If you have one bed, the slave gets it. If you have one blanket, the slave gets it. Period. The slave is treated with dignity, but he's a slave. At the end of 6 years, he goes free. And because then he goes free, his debt is gone. No other society in history at that point had such a thing, where a person to get into trouble would find a way out of it. And that's what he did. It wasn't simple to be a slave for 6 years, but it wasn't. You weren't tortured. You weren't punished.
Okay, you've been the shop with us the next half hour.
Yeah, I'm doing it now.
Right, so that's the idea. Now, he says, if he shall arrive by himself, he will leave by himself. That is, if the guy comes in as a single man, he leaves as a single man. Why would they tell you? Because sometimes the slave owner would give him a non-Jewish slave in order to have children, and the children would be slaves. Like, not that it was common, but so it's telling you, though, that if the man comes in unmarried, and he gets married by way of the master marrying him off, he leaves with him. He leaves on his own. If he is the husband of a woman, his wife will leave with him. But if he was married before he came, he leaves with his wife, which tells you that his wife went with him. She wasn't a slave, but she was taken care of in the same way. If his master will give him a woman and she bears him sons or daughters, right, and he shall go out by himself, right, as I just said. Now, here's where it becomes very interesting. On the top of 418, it says, Im Amar Yomar Abed. What if the servant comes at the end of 6 years and he says, Ahati es Adoni, I love my master. I like being here. I like being a slave. As Ishti, and the wife he gave me, I like her. As Bonai, and my children that I got from this marriage. So I like my master. I like being a slave. I mean, being a slave is a terrible thing to have to be. But I suppose if you're a kind of person who is prepared to give up a certain amount of freedom to not have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry where your next meal is coming from. You don't have to worry about where you'll sleep. You don't have to worry about anything. Right? It's like an extreme kibbutz. Right? Everything is taken care of. You just have to do your job. Right? So if a guy says, you know what, I don't mind being a servant. I want to stay here. So there's a provision for it. He says, I love my master. I love the wife. I love the children. Lo yetzechashi. I don't want to go free. I want to stay here. The Yigishu Adonam Elohim. So it says that his master will bring him to the judges, to bring him to court. The Yigishu El Adelet, the judge will allow him to stay, and they will take him to the door, O Ala Mezuzah, or to the doorpost. The Ratza Adonam Bezozno, and his master will take an awl, like a nail, like an awl is a larger thing. The Ratza, and he will put a hole in his earlobe. He'll put his earlobe against the door, or against the mezuzah, and put the awl against it and hit it with a hammer, and put a hole in his ear. And it says, and the master shall bore through his ear with the awl, and he shall serve him forever. He belongs to the master forever. So the commentaries say, what is this? The guy wants to stay. All right, that's weird, but people are people. People do weird things. But in order for him to stay, you go to the judge. That makes sense. The judge makes a ruling. This guy is saying he wants to stay. He's not being forced. But then you go and you put a hole in his ear. What's the purpose of putting a hole in his ear? It's just no different than having an earring, right? It's not like they named him. But why? Why his ear? Why don't you put a hole in his nose? Like, why don't you put a tattoo on him? Why put a hole in his ear? So Rashi tells us from the Gemara that the ear who heard on Sinai, right, just last week's Parsha, that I am the Lord your God, and you will have no other gods before me, and you were slaves to Pharaoh, now you are a servant to me. In other words, now the person who heard on Sinai, the ear who heard on Sinai, that you are my servants, I am your God, right? Didn't listen. He didn't listen. He said, I want my own master. God's not my boss. I'm not a slave to God or a servant to God. I'm a servant to this guy. So therefore, because his ear didn't hear it, you put a hole in his ear. That's what it says. So I see, okay, that makes some sense. But I see in some of the commentaries, they say that's still odd. Because it's not his ear that didn't hear, it's his brain that didn't register. Right? His ear didn't hear. His ear heard, right, that you should be only a servant to God. You should be a free person. His ear heard it, but the fact that he didn't take it to heart, he didn't think it through, and he wants to be a servant, that means he didn't think about it. Right? So don't put a hole in his ear, put a hole in his brain. Right? Why do you put a hole in his brain? Because he didn't think it through. So the answer is that it is appropriate that it's his ear. Because this is a perfect example of how a person can know something and do the opposite. Right? It's like when you talk to a person who smokes. They smoke, and you say, you know, that the science says you will get sick from this. Not you might, you will. You might not die, you might not get cancer, but you're going to be sick from smoking. Why don't you stop? And the guy will say, oh, not me. Not everybody gets sick. 99 out of 100 people maybe, but not me. I'm the one who doesn't. Everybody thinks that, right? So what does it really mean? It means that you said something to him, or he read an article, but he doesn't take it to heart. He doesn't allow the knowledge to affect his actions. He does what he wants to do, right? It's called cognitive dissonance, which is where a person can cognitively hear something, they can understand something, and not act on it. Right? We all do it to some extent. Right? We all should be physically fit. We're not. Do we know that it's bad for us? Yes, we know. Do we know you'll die younger? Yes, we know. Do we do it? No. Do we do other things? We buy things, right? Intelligently. Right? Sometimes I'll talk to someone and they won't. They'll be running out of money, and I'll say, well, why don't you don't go shopping at this store? It's more expensive. Go over to this store. And they'll say, I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? You don't have time to drive another 10 blocks and save $100 a week? I don't have time. So what do you have, right? That's the same idea. They're hearing a fact, but it's an inconvenient truth, as they say, right? And that's what it is here. This guy, he heard the words. He heard them, but he left them in his ear. He didn't let them get into his brain to change how he acted. So he said, I want a life where I don't have to worry about making a living. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do all day. I don't have to worry about my kids and my wife. He'll take care of it. I just have to go down and fetch water or build a house. Whatever my master wants, that's what I got to do. I'd rather have that than to have to make decisions and all kinds of things. And that's because he's not thinking. And that's why they put the hole in his ear. Because he left the message in his ear. It didn't enter his brain. And it's an important message. And that's exactly why it's done the way it is. And it goes on, it talks about a person who sells their child into slavery, which, there are occasions when a person's allowed to do it, but then it switches, and we get to 420, 421, it starts talking about other laws that are pertinent to this topic, which you would think normally are pretty straightforward. Maybe you look at the top of the page, number 12, it says, one who strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. But for one who has not lain in ambush, and God causes it to come to his hand, I shall provide you a place to which you should flee. What's that? If a person maliciously, right, first degree murder, he plans a murder, he wants to kill someone, and he kills them, he should be killed. Right? How about if somebody kills someone by mistake? They're out in the woods chopping wood, and the head of their axe flies off the handle, and it flies across the 100 feet, and hits the guy in the head and kills him. Right? Should he be put to death? So he says no. He says that, but for one who had not lain in ambush, somebody who had no interest in hurting someone else, and God caused it to come to his hand, God caused that this person was in the wrong place at the wrong time, I shall provide you a place to which ye shall flee. That is, that God made certain cities where people who committed manslaughter, that's what it basically is, manslaughter rather than murder. There was no intent to kill, but usually they did something foolish, like the guy who's chopping with an axe, and he says, "Oh, there's nobody around there." Bad. It flies off. It'll hit a tree, and he flies off and it hits a person. Right? In other words, he was negligent, even though he had no bad feeling. A guy who drives drunk, right, is not a person who wants to kill somebody, but he's negligent. He's stupid. He thinks I can drive fine. I don't need to worry. I can have 6, 7 drinks and still drive my car, and it won't affect me. I know I've done it before. Right? That's what they'll say, and they'll do it, and they'll hit somebody and kill them. Did they want to kill him? Certainly not. Right? But did they contribute to it by drinking? Yeah, they did. So that person, in most of these cases, runs off to a city of refuge. There are the 6 cities that were made for these people to go to, where they'll be safe. They won't be, people won't attack them. Not that they won't have to have a trial. It has to be judged that they did this mistake. But in order to keep them safe from the family of the person they killed, because they were negligent, they go to those cities. Then it says, if a man shall act intentionally against his fellow man to kill him, but it says you should take him to die. One who strikes his father or mother shall be put to death. One who kidnaps someone and sells them, he shall be put to death. One who curses his father and mother shall be put to death. If men quarrel, and one strikes his fellow with a stone or a fist, and he does not die, but falls into bed, right? In other words, 2 people are fighting, which already puts them guilty of doing something wrong, and one hits the other one and causes him to be injured, not to die, but he becomes an invalid. He's responsible. You have to pay. You have to pay for what you've done. If a man shall strike his slave or his maidservant, same thing. Men shall fight. Now here on 422 we have an interesting thing. This actually deals with the question of abortion. It says, if men shall fight and they collide with a pregnant woman and she miscarries, but there be no fatality, he shall surely be punished as the husband of the woman shall cause to be assessed against him, and he shall pay it by order of judges. So that means that if 2 men are fighting, and they have no intention to hurt anyone else, but they're hurting each other, and one of them, and because the guy knocks the other guy down, he hits a pregnant woman, and she has a miscarriage. Now, is that murder? I mean, manslaughter? Did they kill a baby? No, it's a fetus. Did they do nothing? I mean, it's not a person. No, they didn't do nothing. Here's where we get the understanding of what the Torah's view is of a fetus. A fetus is a part of the woman's body. Right? The woman's body, that's what the fetus is. Right? So when you hear from people that say, it's my body, I can control it, there's a certain amount of truth to that. We just add the role of God in there. But we also say it's a part of the woman's body. Right? So, but when she aborts it because the man did something wrong, so he's responsible for that. He has to pay something because it isn't nothing. It's something. If somebody had messed around, that child, and 95% of the chances will be born. Right? There's no reason why he wouldn't be born. He's not going to be born because of what you did. So therefore, you're responsible for that. So this is not talking about abortion, but you see that when it comes to abortion, that we understand that a fetus is not nothing, but it's not a human. It's somewhere in between, which is different than the Catholics. It's not pro-choice or pro-life, either one. Our belief is different. Pro-life is the Catholics, right? The Christians who believe the baby from the moment of conception is a human being and you can't kill it, period. And then you have the other ones who say it's just a part of the woman's body. So if the woman wants to cut off her finger, she can cut off her finger. If she wants to abort a child, she aborts a child. It's up to her. That's the other end. That's the pro-choice. We don't believe in either. We have a middle ground. And we say that yes, the baby is a part of the mother. But if the baby is allowed to continue, it will become a human. And every day that it continues, it becomes more human. Until it gets to the point where it's a human trying to get out of a human. But until that point, it's less than us, but it's more than anything else. And that's why the longer the fetus is inside the mother, the more severe the reason for abortion has to be in order for the Torah to allow an abortion. And when the Torah allows an abortion, by the way, it never allows one. It requires one. Right? In other words, if a woman would be told, if you give birth to this baby, it will kill you, right? It says, before medical science could deal with some of the things that we have, and they go and a woman's going to give birth, and she's going to die giving birth. Right? So if the doctors come to her and they say, based on our knowledge, if you give birth to this baby, its head is so large it will kill you. So then she is required to kill the fetus. Not that she may kill the fetus, she must kill the fetus. If not, she's committing suicide. She's not allowed to do that. Right? So you see the Torah very rarely gives you permission to do something. It either requires you to do it or it requires you not to. But here, and this is an example of it. And then it goes on to talk about what happens if a person injures someone else. If a man strikes the eye of his slave, or he knocks out the tooth of the slave, what happens? And then it talks if an ox will gore a man or a woman, what will happen? And it goes through all these various laws. These are very mundane laws, but they're all coming from the Torah, and they answer a lot of ethical questions for us, which the rest of the world doesn't know the answer. The rest of the world doesn't know if ultimately abortion is murder or not. The rest of the world doesn't know if a person is, you have a person who's, let's say, I'll make one up, a person who's got cancer, and they're going to die on March 1st, and they're in terrible pain, and it's February 20th. Right? And they go to their kid and they say, listen,
once they start eating this way, you'll make yourself.
I'm going to die a weekend anyway. You got it. I can't
eat this way.
So what do you do? Are you allowed to? Must you? Or must you? So that's what we do. We know the answers. The rest of the world, you go to one country, it's one way or one the other. Either it's right or it's wrong. Either that's murder or it's not murder. What is the justifiable rule that says that if I'm in war, I can't kill somebody?
What we know right now,
euthanasia. So, euthanasia is a bit complicated, but in general, simply because somebody wants to die, you can't do it. Because even though, until recently, the laws in the West were the same, which is, you don't own your life. You didn't give yourself life, and you can't get it. Therefore, you can't go and say, I want you to do it. And then it's okay. That's not okay. And we believe as Jews that every moment of life is precious. And that in general, no matter what a person will tell you now, when the time comes, everybody would prefer to live in pain. To live in pain, as terrible as it is, when a person knows I'm going to die in 10 minutes, they'd rather live in pain for 10 minutes than die. And even though we say, we say it doesn't make sense. And of course there are people who aren't pointless. There's never means everybody. But the point being is that the soul of the person wants to live. And even in pain, he wants to live. And therefore, there are occasions where you don't have to do heroic measures, you don't have to put people back. Right? A lot of this is Christian, where you hear about that they go to the hospital, they argue with the doctors all the time. We also, some of our doctors are overly aggressive, and some of the hospitals are very overworked. And they're very anti-old. When a person gets old, I hear it all the time. I go to my members, I go to them to the hospital, and an older person is in the hospital, and the doctor will say, he lived a long life, and he had, he had something in his life. Is this how you want to remember him? And we need the resources, we need the beds, and he's going to die anyway. Why do you want to go through this? Are you so selfish that you want to keep him alive for your own purposes, and he should be in pain for so long? That's what the doctor says. And it's not accurate. I can tell you in my own experiences in this field that I've had numerous stories, but just one, is that I have a woman in the school whose father was deathly ill in the hospital 3 times. That I was deathly ill, where any logical person would say this man's going to die. And we go in the first time, and he's in the hospital for 3 weeks. He's an old man, and with a woman's middle age, survived. And the doctors say, we really advise you, he's going to go. That is just making comfortable. And that's just a code word in many cases, not always. We doesn't feel anything. He's going to die. And she called me. We went in and we said, no, you can feel it. And they said, no, you're wrong. You're suffering. And finally, he got out. He was fine. He got out. He got 2 years later, sick again. Same story again. We go and fight him. He gets up and leaves. He's fine. Third time, he died. Now, this is 5 years. 5 years. But, right, I'm not saying that the doctors are all callous and care. There are many loving, caring, compassionate people in this field. And that's why many are going to this field. But there's definitely an undercurrent that are anti-old people. And they think, why do you do this? A young person needs these people. A young person needs these people. That's the way we believe. So there are occasions where, like, let's say, somebody is, is in the stages of dying. Maybe they will be away a day, a month, you never know, right? But they're not going to get it. Like, whatever it is, their parts of their body are shutting down. So every case has to be judged individually, but in general, there is room to say that if that person's heart stops, you don't have to start it again. Even though they don't live another 5 days. But if their body is shutting down one organ after the other, and the last one is the heart, so then they're going to go through all this, and they'll still be alive. So they're going through this process of their liver, let's say their kidneys, and then their heart. And if you would start their heart, the next day the liver will go, and the day after that something else will go. You don't necessarily have to start. But on the other hand, there are certain cases where you do start, where you should, because there is a possibility the person could get better, even if it's a long term. So we have to judge each case separately. But in general, Judaism is not dogmatic. They don't say you always do it, like many Christian groups, and we don't say you never do it, like any secular group. We say that there are occasions, and you have to know the basis of it. So then it switches from humans and to animals. We'll talk about what happens if a person is an animal, if it's another animal, if it's a person, and so forth. We go through all those laws. Now, we go into 427. It switches. Some of these laws are really very interesting. On 426 and 427, it talks about if a thief is discovered while tunneling in, and he's struck and dies, there is no blood guilt. What is this? So imagine you're in your house, and some thief comes and digs a hole under your house and pops up in your kitchen, right? And you see it. You see a guy pop up in your kitchen, and you take your and then you hit him in the head and you kill him, and he's dead. You don't warn him. You don't give him a chance to get away. You don't tell him that you don't get out of here and I'm going to kill him. You just kill him. There's no problem. Not you can do it, but it's just his blood is not on your face. Because that's called bottomless terrorist, the expression of the Talmud. He comes, if a guy breaks into your house, when it's understood that you're home, then he's prepared to kill you. Right? Because he knows that an average person is going to defend his home. So if he goes into your house and he presumes, and the presumption no one's home, so there's a better reason to think that if he would surprise him, that he would. But if he knows you're home, so he digs into your house while you're there. He literally pops up in the middle of your bedroom, in the middle of the night. Right? You're home. In that case, you can escape. Because you have to, that's the logic. And in other cases, you can't. Because that gives you an example. And these questions are argued in every society. They have what they call the Make My Day nexus, which, right, comes from the Make My Day. And where a guy comes, if a guy goes into your property and he threatens you, you can kill him. Texas, or at least the law was that you can just kill him. Right? It's called Make My Day. Come on, you come into my house, against my wishes, and you don't leave, I can kill you. Because you're threatening me. That's what they called it, the Make My Day. And other societies say you can't. Canada, you can't shoot someone, you can't even have a gun. Right? So you see a difference. So here the Torah is telling you this is the way you should do it. It talks about what happens if you have fire and all different types of things. And you have the cases where a man seduces a woman, an unmarried woman who's a virgin, So what happens to him? Because he will have to be responsible. You can't just say too bad for her. Our society does. Our society says, educate your daughter not to get tricked. Right? What happens if he tricks her? He does it without physically forcing her. Right? It is a pay. He has to pay. He's responsible. I mean, in fact, the laws of rape are very interesting. When a man rapes a woman, and a woman tries to get away, and he forces her. So it says that he has to pay for it. He has to marry her, and he's never allowed to divorce her. Now she's allowed. She can say no. She doesn't have to marry him, and she doesn't have. And she can. But he's not allowed to divorce. He loses his right to divorce because he basically. Right? Remember, law is law. Law is not feeling. It's not a feeling. In law, he made her this. We don't treat a woman. We can make it good. They said, I'm a little bit. We certainly would have because you had to take it. Of course, there wouldn't be too long. But what they're saying in our society, we don't want garbage hours and having difficult time. He can just walk away. What are you going to do? I don't do anything wrong. She's her job. She can make her own choices. And here it says, yes, she is a visible, but she can make her own choices. But the society also says you have to look out for people. Have you looked right before it? It is a very important one. You shall not taunt or oppress a stranger. For you are strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not cause pain to any widow or orphan. If you dare to cause him pain, for if he shall cry out to me, I shall surely hear his outcry. My wrath will blaze, and I will kill you by the sword, and your wives will be widows. Very strong. Right? What it's telling us is that we have an obligation, as far as obligating us, that we have to treat widows and orphans and strangers. Here it means both converts and strangers, because they're both referred to as the same word. With an extra amount of mercy and dignity. Right? And the reason is as follows. The Talmud says, let's say I don't consider this woman's a widow, I don't treat her right. What happens is I'm giving her pain 2 times. One is I'm treating her badly. Another one is she says to herself, if I had a husband, he wouldn't do this. My husband is no. If I had parents, they would do this. I'm really good. I can't sleep on my fault, but if my husband was black, he would do this. And then the pain of losing a father comes back to us. So you are inflicting pain on them twice. So God says, you mess with them, this is my family. The orphans and the widows are mine. You mess with them, you mess with my hand. And you'll pay for it. That's why it's so graphic. Right? Your children will be widows, and your wives will be widows, and your children will be orphans. Very strong for God to use his word, but he's trying to show it. And in history, we've had cases, many cases. There's stories how in Europe, when the Tsar would send people out to go kids, Jewish kids, and send them to the army. They would go to the army for their whole life. Right? Imagine stories like this. They were kids who were Jewish, who were taken away by the army for 40 years. They didn't even know they were Jewish. Or they knew they were Jewish, they didn't know what it was. And at the end, they're just thrown out. They did nothing. So you imagine the Tsar sent people to the city to go. This city, I want 10 days for them. So they go in, they grab 10 days. And one of the boys has a rich father. So what's he going to do? He's going to go to the buy his son. So I said, listen, I say my son, $200,000. Go get that kid over there. He's got no parents. He's got nobody. He just runs around the street all the time. So they take him. Right? He's an orphan. Right? So that is a horrible thing. It's horrible. I mean, I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Like, I understand you want to buy your son out, but to go and sell out somebody else, like the Torah is telling you can't do that. Same thing with widows, right? You can't go tricking the widows. You can't abuse the widows. You can't treat them badly. I know it goes so far that and I have a teacher, and I try to do it myself. That his teacher, when he had a friend, so he would, like, let's say before me, would send him SHMOT, he'd send him a gift. Right? Like we send our friends gifts. And the guy dies. So he kept sending it to his guy's wife, even though he didn't really know his wife. Because if he stopped, the wife would say, you know what, if my husband's life, he would give a SHMOT. My husband's dead. So he doesn't care about me. Right? So she would feel even worse. Okay, so for the rest, year after year after year, he kept doing it, even though he didn't even know the guy's wife. So that was the case. Right? The next one is also another example. What that one is an example of, nobody but God would come up with this. Now you know. What I tell you is the Avram Mishpatim, if these laws seem like secular laws, I don't need the Torah to tell me. I can make this up myself. You wouldn't. You would have this society would say, it's okay to abuse widows. This society would say, you can't abuse widows. This one says you can have abortion. This one says you can't have abortion. This one you're going to go to jail the rest of your life. You got caught smoking marijuana. This one's illegal. It's kind of crazy world in this. The Torah gave us the answers. Right? And when it comes to orphans and widows, the Torah tells you. The next one is lending money. It says, when you lend money to my people, here God calls the Jewish people my people. To the poor person who is with you, do not act towards them as a creditor. Do not owe them. Okay? So I'm telling you, right, it's a mitzvah to lend money. You can't charge interest. So let's think this through. Is this really logical? Let's say I have a business, and my business is that, I buy and sell houses. So I decided, I hear in Toronto there's a good market now. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to buy a couple of houses. So I have flying to Toronto. Now to get around all these houses, I got to rent a car. So I go to my friend, Mr. Jewish guy, and he's got a business with 10 cars. So I said, listen, I need to rent a car from you. So the car costs him $2 a day. He charges me $10 a day, right? Yeah, it's his business. It's a business, right? That's what business is. Then you go to rent a car, whatever it is. They charge you 300% of what it costs them. Because half the time, half the cars are just sitting there. So they got to make a little profit. So it's reasonable. So he charges you. It's not your plan. He's doing business with us. Is he allowed to make a profit on you? Sure. You're coming to town to buy and sell houses to make a profit. Why shouldn't he make a profit? You're going to go and have lunch. Does the guy who's selling you lunch make a profit on you? Sure. They shouldn't be crazy, but they should make a profit. Everybody has a right to make a living. So how come if you want to come and do business in Toronto, and you want to buy a house, and you need another $50,000, I can't lend you the money and make a profit. I can't make money. I can make money by I can lend you my car and charge money. I can give you a place to sleep in my house and charge you money. Perfectly fine. I can charge you money for food. I can charge you money for information. I can't charge you money for money. Yeah, I give you money, right? You need money to buy a house. You need a car to buy a house. You need a plane ticket to buy a house. You need a hotel to buy a house. So why is money different? Well, it says money is different. You can't charge interest for money. Everything else you can. Making a profit is just charging interest. When I make a profit on you staying in my hotel, so I'm just charging you interest on my room, so to speak. It's just not interest, but it's the same idea. So why is one allowed and one not allowed? So the Torah tells us there's nothing that is evil about interest. Interest is not evil. Perfectly okay. But you don't charge your brother interest. That's what the Torah is saying. That's why God refers to the people as my people. This is not, you're coming to my people. You're one of my people. But you're coming to my people. And one of my children is coming to you, his brother, and saying, I'm in trouble. I need $10,000 or they're going to take my house away. So what do? You give him $10,000 and you charge him $11,000. And now he's in worse trouble, right? Okay, fine. Now his house is not going to get taken away. Now his house and his car is going to get taken away next year because he can't pay you the 11. If he can't pay the 10, he can't pay the 11. Right? So God says, if somebody comes to you for a thing, to help them in their business, you can make a profit. But if somebody's coming to you for money, much of that time, they're in trouble. People borrow money because they need to borrow money. They're in trouble. And if you charge them interest, it's just going to be worse, not better. You're not allowed to do that to your brother. And that's why it's not evil to charge interest. We're allowed to charge interest to non-Jews because it's not bad. Nothing's wrong with charging interest. What's wrong is that when your own brother comes to you, your own brother, you think of yourself, your own brother comes to you and says, listen, I'm really in trouble. I need $5,000 or I'm going to lose my business. Can you help me? And you say, all right, but I'm going to charge you $5,000. $5,000, lend you $5,000, you'll make $5,500. You wouldn't do that. If your family, if you really, I don't mean people don't get along with their brothers. Normally, if you get along with your brother and he comes to you, and even if you have a history of not paying you back, you're still going to do it, and you're not going to charge him interest. Why? Because you don't want on your head that your brother is going to be destitute because you didn't lend him $5,000. So you do it. Right? So God's saying all Jews are brothers. You have to treat all Jews this way, and therefore you're not allowed to charge interest. Yeah, you can make a profit. Nothing wrong with that. But if they're against the law, and there's nothing they can do, they have to have this money, and you put it over their head that they're going to have to pay you extra, you're being cruel. And I won't allow you to do that. That's where it comes from. Not Jewish, you're allowed. It's not you. I mean, not your brother. You can't, but there's laws. There's laws about it. You can't be a user, like usury. You have to charge a normal rate. Yeah, you can charge a normal rate. Yeah, so you have what's called a heter iska, which was developed by the rabbis in order so that under certain circumstances you can borrow and pay interest. But what happens is you're really not paying interest. I can't go into all the details now, but just a brief idea of it is basically, let's say you live in Israel, you want to buy a house and need a mortgage. So you go to the bank. Well, the bank can't charge you interest because it's a Jewish bank and you're a Jew. So how do they do it? So what they do is a heter iska. What that means basically is that the bank will invest in your house with you. They'll invest in your house. You're basically saying, I'm buying this house. It's an investment to me. It's going to be worth more. Even if I'm living in it, it's going to be worth more. So therefore, I'm coming to you for a loan to do it. So the bank says, I'm not going to lend you money because we're in the interest business. We can't charge you interest. So we can invest with you. So we will invest in your house with you. And we want 10% of the profits that you make on the house. And you say, you make 10% of the profit. Let's say I'm going to make $1 million in this house. Whatever it is. I'm not giving you 10%. So they said, okay, let's work out an amount. That amount that you work out with them, that's in place of interest. So you say, okay, instead of you being a partial owner, you're a partial owner, but instead of you getting a percentage, you're going to get a flat rate. I'm going to give you, let's say I borrowed $100,000, I'll give you $5,000 at the end. If I lose the house, if I make money, I owe you the money. Otherwise, they're investing in your house. If you lose the money, you're out of luck. So this way, they come with a set amount. And that's how they do it. It's more complicated than that, right? And it's because that there are certain circumstances where it's appropriate and certain ones where it's not. Like it's certainly here, if somebody comes to me and they're in trouble, right? I have a tzedakah fund, so I give them money. And they say, well, I'll pay you back. And I said, okay, you want to. Yeah, but you don't have to. That's not what this is. It's not a loan society. It's a charitable fund. You want to pay back, you pay back. But if they come back to me, I give them $1,000, they come back with $1,100, I really can't take the 11. I can take the 1,000, but the 11 is considered interest. Like, they want to come 3 months later and give another $100 on their own to the shul for this fund. That's fine, they can. But in no way can it appear to be, or can it actually be, that they're giving extra money because I help them. Because that's the form of usury. That's right. That's what it's referring to here also. That's why, when they talked about how there were money changers in the temple in the days of Jesus, how we know it just couldn't be. Because you have this rule that money changers just change one type of money to another, but they're talking about people who gave loans. Or in Jesus, they're talking about people who charge interest. Of course, we don't have any money changing hands in the temple. It didn't happen in the temple. Outside the temple, maybe. So the whole description is off. But they're trying to say that we were corrupt. Right? We weren't. How are we doing? Here we are. So that's the loaning of money on 431 and 432. Here's a good one. The bottom of 433 is another one that you never would think of on your own. If you encounter an ox of your enemy or his donkey wandering, you shall return it to him repeatedly. It goes on. If you see the donkey of someone you hate crouching under its burden, would you refrain from helping him? You shall help him repeatedly. So here's the case. What is it saying? First, it's saying if you see there's a guy you don't get along with. I mean, it shouldn't be, but it happens. There are people you don't get along with. And his donkey, right, is straining under a lot of weight, and it's painful for the donkey. You're obligated to go help him with his donkey, even though you hate him. The person, you hate the person. You have to go help him. Right? So let's say he's driving a car, and there's no cars don't feel pain. And his car has so much stuff in the trunk that it can't go up this flat, slippery hill in the ice. It's too heavy. Right? You have an obligation to go help him push that car. The guy you hate, the obligation. Now, what happens here? You have you're going down the road, and there's two guys, one on each side of the road, with flat tires. One person is your best friend, one person you hate. Who do you help first? So the Torah says the person you hate. Why? To teach you to be a better person, to improve your character. Right? And even if it's somebody who is appropriate that you hate, which is pretty rare. Most of the 99.9% of the time we don't like someone because we're flawed, not because it's really legitimate.
Yeah.
But whatever the reason is, we are supposed to work on our character to be better people. So you help the person that you hate. Now, what legal system will come up with that law? Tell me, British common law?
Yes, probably we have one.
The Torah comes up with that law. That's showing you why these laws, which
If it's very cheap.
Like I said, I don't need a Torah to tell me not to steal. If I don't want anyone to steal from me,
How much is cauliflower? Those are very expensive.
I don't want anybody to take
No, we
my
don't
life,
need it now.
so I'm not going to steal anybody else's life. I don't want somebody to damage my car, so I won't damage anybody else's car. That's enough.
Okay.
But that's very nice. And probably for the simple things, you don't need it.
No.
But you don't think of to extrapolate it. Right?
Thank you, Mom.
Like, what if the car is stolen? And I see somebody's got my car. Am I allowed to steal it back? Or am I also being a thief? In other words, if he stole my car, is it now stolen? Or does it mean that I can go take it? Right? If, like you lend your neighbor your shovel, and 5 years later you still got your shovel, and you go by one day and you see in his backyard your shovel, can you just go take it? Well, you don't know. Is it right or is it wrong? Are you stealing? Or are you taking back your thing? That's a thing. But there are many complicated ones that you need the Torah to tell you because people can understand simple things. Like when it comes to ethics, what is the definition of war? What is the definition of life? What's the definition of murder? What's the definition of theft? What's the definition of kindness? Right? We don't necessarily know. It's like, I want to ask a question. If you look in the section that deals with intimacy, there's a number of them. But one of them would say that certain types of intimacy, which is forbidden in the Torah, to agree with kinds of sex. It says, why is it forbidden? It says, chesed. Chesed means a kindness. It's a kindness. That is to say, for a man and a woman to have relations is a kindness. Somebody who has a need, and you fulfill it. Right? That's a kindness. But if it's kindness, there could be a horrible thing. How do you know that it's appropriate kindness? Now, what if there's brother and sister? Is that appropriate or not appropriate? Well, how do you know? You only know because God said so. Right? It was throughout history, in many societies, they wanted families to marry family. They kept the money in the family. Because as soon as you married out of the family, now the money is starting to disperse among other families. But as long as I marry my cousin, right, and I have my grandparents' money, it stays within the family. Right? Along comes the Torah and says, you can't do that. You can't marry only in your family. Not only genetically we know it's not good, right? But even back then, before we knew that, the Torah says you can't marry your sister, you can't marry your aunt, and certain things like that. That's not really telling us here, right? Is you need the Torah to tell you even the most mundane things. And that's the whole PARSHA. The whole PARSHA is based on that idea, that it's really to teach us that every aspect of our life has to have the imbued with spirituality. Because without it, we don't know. We don't know the answer, right? And that's what's so special about this PARSHA. Right? There's probably 20 more things that we could talk about. We hardly got through it, but we have to stop at that point. And I hope that I'll just tell you one last piece. At the end of the PARSHA, it goes back to talking about the giving of the Torah again. The end of this PARSHA. You have the last week's PARSHA was they were at Mount Sinai, right? And they saw the lightning and the thunder and the Ten Commandments, right? Then it says, and these are the laws that God taught us. Don't steal, don't do this, don't do that. And then it comes back and says more at Sinai was giving the Torah. And the commentaries ask, like, what is it say? Like at the beginning of the story of getting the Torah, at the end of it, serving the Torah. In the middle, you have all these laws that have to do with, like, hurting a guy's ox and hurting his house and hurting his wife. Right? In the middle, like, let's be smart here. Tell me the story to give you the Torah, and then tell me what the Torah says. Don't tell me part of the story, and then tell me what it says in the rest of the story. The commentaries say that the reason is to remind us that everyone knows the giving of the Torah is a holy thing. It's like also, and we put these laws in the middle to remind you that these laws are also good. When you don't steal and you don't rape and you don't hurt people, that's a holy thing. It's not just a good thing. It's a holy thing. And how we treat people is holy. It says God with us as witnesses between us and God. When God, by putting on tefillin, there's no more important.